They said the boy was mute. They said he couldn't speak, but no one expected his first words to be an accusation. 7 bodies, 1 house, and a mother who smiled a little too calmly. Seamus O'Reilly had been silent for 8 long years. Doctors called it trauma. Teachers called it defiance. His mother, Elaine, called it a phase he'll grow out of. But the neighbors, they whispered something darker, something colder, something about the nights when the lights in Elaine's house stayed on until sunrise, and the strange, sour smell that drifted from the basement window whenever the wind shifted. Seamus heard those whispers. He heard everything, but he never spoke. Not even when kids mocked him, not even when adults pitied him, not even when his mother held his chin and begged him to just say one word. He stayed silent, until the night the power went out. It was a storm night in mid-October. Rain hammered the roof. Thunder rolled like giants fighting in the sky. Elaine lit 3 candles in the kitchen. Seamus sat across from her, his small hands folded on the table, his eyes unblinking. But in the candlelight, he looked different, older, calmer, almost ready. Elaine tried to speak casually. "Don't be scared, baby. It's just a storm." But the wind howled, the ground shook, and from the basement, something thudded. A heavy, dragging thud, followed by another and another. Elaine froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She forced a smile. "It's just the pipes," she whispered. But Seamus knew better. He turned his head slowly toward the basement door, and for the first time in his life, he opened his mouth. His voice was thin, dry, cracking like an old door hinge. "Mom," he whispered. Elaine dropped the candle. Wax splattered across the table. Her eyes widened, first with shock, then with fear. Seamus didn't blink, didn't tremble, didn't hesitate. He said, "They're not pipes. You hid them down there." Elaine's breath stuttered. "Hid what, Seamus?" He lifted his trembling finger, pointed at the basement door, and said the words that would destroy everything. "The 7 bodies. The ones you said would never be found." The storm roared. The basement thudded again. Elaine pressed her hand to her chest like her heart was clawing its way out. Seamus pushed back his chair, stood up, and whispered one more sentence. "I can hear them moving." Then the basement door creaked. Just an inch. Just enough to let out a cold breath of air that smelled like rot and secrets. And Elaine's mask finally cracked. The basement door wasn't supposed to move. Not on its own. Not after what Elaine buried down there. But that night, it breathed. The door eased open another inch. A long, cold draft slid across the kitchen floor. It curled around Seamus's bare feet like invisible fingers. He didn't flinch. Elaine did. Her voice trembled. "Seamus, you don't understand." But Seamus kept staring at the dark gap. His pupils were wide, too wide. Like he was looking into a place he'd visited before. A place he'd escaped from. Another thud came from below. Heavier this time. Something, or someone, scraping against concrete. Elaine grabbed Seamus's wrist. "Don't look at it." She yanked him close, her nails dug into his skin. "You weren't supposed to remember." But Seamus did. Every night, every whisper, every dragging sound beneath his bedroom floor. He pulled his hand back, silent again, staring not at his mother, but through her. Lightning flashed across the windows. For a split second, the basement revealed a shape behind the door. A shadow. Tall. Bent. Swaying. Elaine stepped in front of her son. "No," she whispered. Not to Seamus, to the shadow. The door groaned louder. cracking open another 2 inches. Now they could smell it. Damp, rotting, sweet and sour like death left too long in the sun. Seamus didn't gag. He breathed it in, slowly, purposefully. "Do you remember their names?" he asked softly. Elaine's face drained pale. Her lips quivered. "You were asleep. You weren't supposed to hear anything." But Seamus had heard. He'd heard everything. The screams muffled under towels, the dragging of bodies across the basement floor, the midnight sobs Elaine thought were silent, and the prayers, the ones she whispered to herself after every kill. Thunder shook the walls. The candles flickered violently. The basement door slammed fully open. Elaine gasped. Seamus took 1 step toward the stairs. "Don't." Elaine grabbed his shoulders. "You don't know what's down there." "I do," Seamus said, his voice stronger now, almost steady. "There, waiting." Something shuffled on the steps, slow, dragging, like swollen feet sliding over wood. Elaine tightened her grip on him. "You can't see them," she whispered. "I kept them hidden for you, for us." Seamus pulled his hand back, silent again, staring not at his mother, but through her. The shadows on the stairs thickened, forming shapes. 7 of them, 7 silhouettes, all staring up the staircase. Elaine backed up until her spine hit the fridge. She clutched her chest. Her breath grew shallow. She whispered, "They weren't supposed to walk. They weren't supposed to come back." Seamus stepped forward again, closer to the stairs, closer to the dead. He whispered a final sentence, not to his mother, to the shadows. "I told you she'd confess." And the 7 figures stepped up onto the kitchen floor. The dead don't walk. At least, that's what Elaine always believed, until the first one stepped into her kitchen. The candle flames bent sideways as the figures emerged. Slow, stiff, silent. 7 shadows, now shaped like people who had once breathed. Their feet left wet prints on the tiles, dark, sticky, almost like they had just climbed out of something deep, something they were never meant to leave. Elaine's voice cracked. "No, no, no, you're not real. You can't be real." But the first figure lifted its head, skin sagging, eyes sunken, jaw hanging loose like it had been broken and never set right. It stared straight at Elaine. She staggered back. Her heel hit the kitchen counter. Her hand searched blindly for anything to defend herself. A knife, a pan, anything. Seamus didn't move. He watched calmly, like he had been waiting for this moment all his life. The second figure entered, a woman, hair clumped, dress stained. She dragged her right leg, the same way Elaine remembered dragging her body down the stairs the night she died. "Stop," Elaine whispered, her voice barely air. "This isn't supposed to happen. I buried you." The third figure stepped forward, a teenager, hands bruised purple, neck twisted at an unnatural angle. His head tilted with each step, left, left, following Elaine like a broken metronome. Seamus's small hand lifted. He pointed to the 7. "She didn't bury you," he said quietly. "She hid you." The air thickened, as if the house were listening. Elaine's knees buckled. She slid down the counter until she was sitting on the floor, shaking, sweating, breathing in short, sharp bursts. "You said you wouldn't tell," she whispered to the figures. "You said you'd stay quiet." Then she laughed, a thin, hysterical laugh. "Just like Seamus, just like my sweet, silent boy." A fourth figure appeared. Small, childlike, no older than Seamus. Bare feet, broken smile. It tilted its head, mirroring Seamus perfectly. Elaine screamed. She covered her mouth as if trying to shove the sound back in. Seamus stepped forward. "Mom," he said calmly, "they just want the truth." The kitchen lights flickered, even though the power was out. A cold wind blew from the basement, circling the room like a hungry animal. The candles sputtered. The fifth and sixth figures entered, 2 men, heavy, bloated, their faces warped as if crushed by something. Elaine curled into herself. "No more," she begged. "Please, no more." But the 7th figure, the last one, the one she feared most, had not yet stepped into the light. Seamus turned to the doorway, his breath slowed, his eyes softened, as if he recognized the final shape forming in the darkness. Footsteps echoed, soft, measured, familiar. Elaine's face crumpled, her jaw dropped, her heart seemed to stop mid-beat. Because the 7th figure was someone she thought she'd never see again. Someone she hadn't meant to kill. Someone who whispered her name in a voice that still carried warmth. Her husband. The dead husband wasn't the scariest part. The scariest part was the way he said her name, like he'd never stopped loving her. He stepped into the candlelight slowly, not stiff like the others, not broken, not dragging, just walking, like a man coming home after a long shift. Elaine's breath cracked in half. "Michael," she whispered. His clothes were dirty, soaked, stained with basement dampness, but his face, the face she had kissed 1,000 times, looked almost untouched. A little pale, a little sunken, but still him. Seamus stared at his father, not scared, not shocked, just waiting. Michael took another step. His bare foot left a dark print on the white tile. He looked at Elaine the same way he did years ago when she told him she wanted a baby. Soft, hopeful, almost gentle. Elaine shook her head violently. "No, no, you're not him. This is a trick. This is a nightmare." But Michael smiled. It was small, sad, and painfully human. "Elaine," he said quietly, the way he used to when she'd wake up sweating from nightmares, the way he used to when he tried to calm her, the way he used to love her. Her body collapsed backward. She hit the floor with a thud. Her hands pressed against her stomach as if she'd been stabbed. The other 6 figures circled her, not touching, just watching, waiting. Michael kneeled in front of her, close enough to touch, close enough she could smell the damp soil on him. His voice dropped low, warm and cold at the same time. "You weren't supposed to hurt anyone. You weren't supposed to hurt me." Elaine sobbed, her face twisted into something wild, broken, panicked, guilty. "I didn't mean to," she cried. "You were yelling, you were leaving, you were going to take Seamus away." Michael's hand lifted, not threatening, almost comforting. But his eyes were empty now, hollow, not alive anymore. "You could have stopped. You didn't." Thunder rattled the walls. The shadows of the 7 dead stretched across the kitchen like tall, crooked fingers reaching for her. Seamus stepped closer. His voice was quiet, almost tender. "Tell them, Mom." Elaine looked up at her son, her mute child, her silent witness, the only person present for every one of her crimes. "You heard?" she whispered, her eyes wide, terrified. Seamus nodded once. "I saw too." Elaine covered her mouth with both hands, as if to stop herself from confessing, but the dead leaned in, closer, 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 until their cold presence pressed against her skin. Her voice broke. "I killed them," she whispered. "I killed them all." The candles extinguished instantly. A blast of freezing air swept the room. The 7 figures straightened. Michael rose to his feet, And Seamus smiled. If you want next, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe so the story continues. Confessions don't free the guilty. Sometimes they feed what's been waiting in the dark. Elaine's whisper still hung in the cold air. I killed them. I killed them all. Her voice trembled like a dying flame. The room felt heavier, like the walls leaned in to listen. Seamus stepped closer to her, his shadow stretching long across the tiles. He looked calm, almost relieved, as if he'd been holding this truth inside for years, waiting for her to finally speak. The 7 dead stood in a half-circle behind him, silent, watching, judging. Michael, her dead husband, was the only one who moved. He stepped around Seamus and stood directly in front of Elaine. His voice was soft. Why did you do it? Elaine shook her head. Her hair stuck to the tears on her cheeks. I didn't mean to. I swear, Michael, I didn't mean to kill any of them. One of the dead women stepped forward. Her jaw cracked as she tilted her head. You strangled me. You meant every second. Elaine screamed. Her hands flew to her ears. Stop! 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 But the voices only grew louder. A man with crushed ribs whispered, You dragged me down the stairs. You prayed nobody saw. A boy with a twisted neck murmured, You smiled while you held me under. The child's shadow stepped closer. You buried me like trash. Elaine twisted on the floor, kicking, clawing, sobbing. No, I didn't. I had to. Michael leaned down, his face inches from hers. You could have asked for help. You could have let us live. A silence fell over the room, a deep, suffocating silence. Then Seamus spoke again. Mom, tell them why you really did it. Elaine froze. Seamus stared at her, not angry, not afraid, just waiting. He already knew the truth. He'd always known. His silence hadn't been fear. It had been survival. Elaine's mouth trembled. She closed her eyes. I didn't want anyone to take you from me. The words hit the room like a gunshot. Seamus blinked. The 7 dead leaned closer. Michael stepped back, shock rippling across his pale face. You killed them? Seamus said slowly. Because of me? Elaine nodded, shaking. You wanted to hurt you, or take you, or change you. I couldn't allow that. You're my baby, my perfect little boy. The dead whispered in unison, Liar. Elaine threw her hands up. They were dangerous. They were bad. I was protecting him. Seamus walked up to her, kneeling, face inches from hers, voice as cold as the basement air. I never needed protection. I needed a mother who wasn't a monster. The candles flared back to life. The dead stepped forward together, 7 shadows towering over her. Elaine screamed, No, don't touch me. I did it for him. Seamus, tell them. But Seamus only watched, silent, expression unreadable. Michael spoke the final sentence. It's time. The 7 dead reached for her, and the house itself seemed to hold its breath. The dead didn't come for revenge. They came for something worse, the truth that Elaine fought her whole life to bury. The 7 figures reached toward her, hands cold, hands broken, hands that had once clawed at the basement floor trying to get away from her. Elaine crawled backward, her palms slipping on the tiles. Seamus, baby, please, tell them I'm not a monster. I saved you. But Seamus didn't blink. He watched her, the same way a doctor watches an infection get cut out. Necessary, inevitable. Michael stepped forward, not angry, just tired. Elaine, he said, you didn't kill them to save him. You killed them because you were afraid. Elaine shook her head violently. I wasn't afraid. I was protecting my son. They wanted to take him. They wanted to hurt him. The dead boy, the one who mirrored Seamus, lifted his pale hand. A whisper escaped his cracked lips. We didn't want to hurt him. We loved him. Elaine's breath caught. Her eyes widened in horror. No, no, you didn't. You're lying. You're lying. But another voice rose. The woman with the twisted jaw. We tried to help him speak. Then the crushed ribman. We tried to help him when you screamed at him. Then the teenager with the bruised neck. We tried to keep him safe. Elaine's face collapsed into terror. Shut up! Shut up! You don't know anything! Seamus finally spoke. Soft, even, deadly calm. They're telling the truth, Mom. Elaine stared at him, shaking. You don't remember, she whispered. You were too young. You were silent. You didn't see. I saw everything, Seamus said. And I heard everything. I heard the screams you thought I slept through. I heard the prayers you whispered after every kill. And I heard the lies you told yourself to make the guilt feel smaller. The wind from the basement roared, sweeping through the room. The candles sputtered violently, bending toward Elaine as if pulled by an invisible force. She crawled toward Seamus, her hands trembling, her voice cracking like shattered glass. I did it for love, she whispered. For you. Everything I did was for you. Seamus tilted his head, the same way the dead boy had tilted his. No, he said softly. You did it because you couldn't handle being alone. Elaine froze. The truth slashed through her like a blade. You killed Dad because he found out, Seamus continued. You killed the neighbors because they asked questions. And you killed the boy because he tried to protect me. The 7 dead leaned closer, each of them whispering the same word over and over. Murderer, murderer, murderer. Elaine clamped her hands over her ears, screaming, Stop, stop, Seamus, help me. Seamus stood up slowly, looked at her with calm, empty eyes. I'm done helping you. Michael turned to Elaine. You kept us down there. Now you join us. Elaine's scream tore through the house as the dead closed their hands around her, dragging her toward the basement door. Her heels scraped the tiles, her fingernails scratched long lines into the floor. She begged, she cried, she choked. The house didn't care. The basement swallowed her whole, and the door slammed shut. If you want next, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe so the story continues. When the basement swallowed Elaine, the screams didn't stop. They just changed, from terror to something that sounded almost like laughter. The house went silent after the door slammed. No wind, no rain, no thunder. Just a thick, heavy stillness. Seamus stood in the middle of the kitchen, barefoot, hands at his sides, eyes fixed on the basement door. He didn't cry, didn't shake, didn't look relieved or scared. He simply waited. The 7 dead watched him, their bodies still twisted, rotting, broken, but their faces softer now, less hateful, almost peaceful. Michael stepped forward, his voice a low echo. It's over. But Seamus didn't reply. He stared at the door like it still had something left to say. A weak thud came from behind the wood, a scrape, a dragging sound, then a muffled gasp. Michael tensed. The dead shadows straightened. Even the candle flames seemed to shrink back. Seamus whispered, She's not gone yet. Michael shook his head slowly. She won't come back up. But Seamus tilted his head, a slow, unnatural tilt, like he was listening to something only he could hear. She will, he whispered. Not now, but she will. The 7 corpses shifted uneasily, their hollow eyes drifting toward the door, almost fearful. Because Elaine O'Reilly wasn't like them. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't an innocent soul dragged into darkness. She was something else, something the dead didn't know how to bury. Michael knelt beside his son. The floor creaked under his weight. "You don't have to stay here," he murmured. "You can come with us." Seamus turned his head slowly. "With you?" His voice was quiet, cold, calculated. Michael nodded. "They'd accept you. They know you're not like her." Seamus blinked once, and the kitchen lights flickered, even though the power was still dead. "I can't go," he said. Michael frowned. "Why not?" Seamus looked at the basement door again. "She isn't done." A chill swept across the room. One of the dead stepped back. Another whispered, She'll turn like we did." Seamus shook his head. "No, she won't be like you." His voice dropped into something darker. "Mom will be worse." The basement thudded again, louder this time. A wet, dragging sound slid across the steps. Something heavy, something alive, or trying to be. Michael's dead eyes widened. "She's changing already." Seamus nodded. "She always changes when she's scared." The 7 figures backed away from the door, as if whatever was being born in that darkness belonged to no world, living or dead. Michael placed a hand on Seamus's shoulder, cold, heavy, fatherly. "What will you do when she comes back up?" Seamus turned his head slowly. "With you?" His voice barely a whisper. "I'll make sure she stays dead this time." The basement door shuddered violently, once, twice, then a long, low growl seeped through the cracks. The dead stepped behind Seamus, all 7, as if he were the only shield they trusted. And the house, for the first time that night, felt afraid. If you want next, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, so the story continues. The dead feared what was coming up those stairs. And when the dead are afraid, you should run. The basement door shook again, harder, faster. Something slammed against it from the inside, a fist, or a skull, or something that used to be human. Michael stepped in front of Seamus, shielding him, but Seamus didn't move. His face was blank, quiet, studying the door like he was reading a familiar story. The 7 corpses huddled together, shoulders trembling, limbs twitching. They had crawled out of the dark, but even they didn't want to face what was rising from it now. Michael whispered, "She's not dead. Not the way we are." Seamus nodded slowly. "She wasn't like you before she died. Why would she be like you now?" A long crack split down the middle of the door. Wood peeled outward. A hand squeezed through, pale, wet, and twitching. The fingers bent backward, joints cracking one by one like snapping twigs. The dead boy whispered, "She's wrong. She's wrong inside." The woman with the twisted jaw backed away, muttering, "She didn't join us. She didn't join us." Seamus stepped forward. Michael grabbed his wrist. "You can't face her alone." But Seamus pulled free. Not violently, not stubbornly, just with purpose. "She's still my mother," he said, "and I'm the reason she kept killing." A voice, wet and gurgling, slid through the cracked door. "Seamus." The 7 dead froze. Their bodies turned toward the sound in perfect unison. Even in death, that voice reached into their bones. The door exploded outward. A blast of cold basement air surged into the room. Wood splinters flew across the tiles. Something crawled out. Not walking, not standing, crawling. Elaine's body dragged itself forward, arms bending at impossible angles, legs twisted beneath her like melted wax. Her head jerked left, then right, then backward. Her mouth hung open far too wide. Blood smeared her chin. Her eyes were pure white, blinking out of sync. But her voice That voice still carried a mother's melody. Seamus, come to Mama. Michael stepped back in horror. That's not her, he whispered. That's something wearing her. The creature slammed both hands on the floor, pulling itself closer. Bones cracked, skin tore. Her spine arched like something inside was pushing outward. Seamus didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on her. Mom, you shouldn't have come back. Elaine's head snapped toward him. Her neck cracked around a full 180 turn. Her voice bled through the air. You made me, Seamus. You always made me. Michael grabbed his son again. Run! Run now! But Seamus shook his head. She's not here to kill me, he said. She's here to take me with her. The creature lurched forward. Her broken fingers scraped across the tile, leaving long red streaks. The 7 dead screamed, a raw, trembling chorus of terror. The house lights flickered alive for the first time since the storm. Bright, buzzing, cold. Elaine lifted her head slowly, and for the first time since she died, she smiled. If you want next, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe so the story continues. She wasn't the mother he remembered. Not human. Not dead. Something worse. Something born of rage, fear, and obsession. Elaine's twisted form lunged across the floor. Bones cracked. Skin tore. Her mouth opened impossibly wide. Drool mixed with blood. Her eyes, empty white, fixed on Seamus. The 7 dead backed away. Even Michael stepped back. This isn't her, he said. This thing, it's her fear, her anger, amplified. Seamus took a single step forward. His small hand reached out. Mom, he whispered. Stop. The creature hissed, high-pitched, wet, guttural. It paused, tilting its head, listening. Then it lunged again. Seamus didn't flinch. His voice carried over the storm of splintering wood and shattering glass. Mom, it's me. It's your son. The dead whispered among themselves. Michael muttered. You can't reason with her. She's unrecognizable. But Seamus continued. Elaine, look at me. I'm not them. I'm not here to take you away. I'm still your boy. The creature hesitated. Something inside seemed to tremble. A flicker of memory, or of humanity, pierced the monstrous form. Elaine's lips quivered. A strangled sound escaped her throat, half scream, half sob. Her body twisted uncontrollably, trying to reach him. But her movement slowed. Her wild energy faltered. Seamus took another step. Closer. Not afraid. Not hesitant. You hid the bodies, he said softly. You lied. You killed. You buried. I saw everything. But I forgive you, Mom. You can stop now. A low growl rattled from the basement door behind them. A warning. The house seemed to shiver, creaking under tension. The 7 dead circled him protectively, yet not aggressively. Even they waited, unsure of the outcome. Elaine's breathing grew uneven. Her twitching slowed. Her hands, bloody, broken, reached for him, then froze mid-air. Her eyes met his, and, for one fraction of a second, Seamus saw his mother again. The sound was almost human. Seamus, she whispered. The voice cracked, soft, broken, barely alive. Why? Why are you here? I'm here to save you. From yourself. The creature wobbled, shivering violently, then fell forward. Her body collapsed onto the floor. Blood pooling, limbs twitching like broken puppets. The monstrous howl became a faint sob. Seamus knelt beside her. His fingers brushed her hair. I forgive you, he said again. And for the first time, the creature, Elaine, stopped moving, completely silent. The 7 dead exhaled collectively. Michael looked down at his son, awe in his empty eyes. She's quiet, he said. She's stopped. Seamus stood slowly. The storm outside had faded. The basement was silent again. The house smelled of wet wood and iron. And yet, the tension lingered. Elaine's eyes flickered open once, empty, silent, but still human enough to feel guilt. Seamus whispered, "I will remember. I will never forget. But you can't hurt anyone else." And in that moment, the balance shifted. The dead receded. The house sighed. The nightmare wasn't over. But Seamus survived it. If you want the final, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to witness the shocking conclusion. Some stories don't end with a scream. Some end with silence, and the cold truth finally settling in. Seamus stood alone in the kitchen. The storm had passed. The air smelled like wet concrete and blood. The 7 dead had vanished into the shadows. The basement door was closed, silent. Elaine lay on the floor, broken, silent. Her chest rose and fell shallowly. Her eyes fluttered open, white, empty, and yet there was a flicker, a tiny spark of recognition. Seamus knelt beside her. No fear, no anger, only a calm, icy resolve. "You can't hurt anyone else," he whispered. "You've had your chance. It's over." Elaine tried to speak. Her lips trembled. Blood dribbled from the corner of her mouth. The words never came. Her voice, once soft, once comforting, was gone. The monster inside her had been quelled. For now. The house groaned. The walls shifted as if breathing. The dead gone. But the air carried a whisper, a warning. Not a threat, just a promise. Seamus rose to his feet. He looked at the basement door. His hand hovered over it, not to open it, but to feel the presence behind it. The darkness, still waiting, not angry, not evil, just patient. Michael's ghost appeared beside him, pale, hollow, but at peace. "You did what I never could," he said softly. "Your silence, your patience, it saved you." Seamus nodded. He didn't speak, but the nod was enough. The weight of years, secrets, and hidden horrors lifted slightly from his shoulders. Not gone, but lighter. Elaine's body twitched once, then again, and then she was still. Seamus didn't cry. He didn't flinch. He simply watched, waiting. The house felt empty now. The walls no longer pressed in. The shadows receded. The smell of rot faded. And yet, Seamus knew this peace was fragile. His mother's darkness, buried, but not destroyed. And the basement. The basement still held 7 truths and 1 more secret. He turned toward the door, a final glance at the kitchen, at the blood, at the silence. Then he walked toward the stairs, leaving the past, but carrying its memory. Outside, the first rays of sunlight pierced the storm clouds. Seamus stepped into them, alone, silent, but stronger than anyone imagined. The house behind him creaked. A low, almost imperceptible laugh floated from the shadows of the basement, a warning, not a threat. just a promise. Seamus paused. He didn't look back. He never would. Some things must stay buried, but some are impossible to forget. And the boy who never spoke finally had his voice, not in words, but in action. He survived. The monsters survived in silence. The story survived in horror. And now it's your turn to tell it. If you loved this story, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let everyone witness the chilling tale of Seamus and the house that hid 7 corpses.